Welcome. Today we're going to dig into a really fundamental shift in leadership, what it looks like to move away from that constant need to prove yourself and into a practice of actually leading with presence. So let's dive in.
I want to start with a foundational question for you to just sit with for a moment. You see, whether you mean to or not, your leadership is always teaching something. Your very presence is a curriculum. So take a second and really ask yourself, what is my leadership teaching people to believe about being human?
So, what's the alternative to always leading from a place of pressure? Well, we call it presence leadership. The key phrase here is regulated authority. Now, this doesn't mean you're some kind of robot without emotions. No way. It's about being anchored enough to stay human, especially when the environment around you is not. It's all about finding an inner stability that creates real outer clarity for everyone else.
Okay, so what happens when that stability just isn't there? Cultures don't become unsafe just because conflict exists. That's normal. They become unsafe because that conflict gets mishandled. And over time, it starts to rot the very foundation of trust.
And this happens in some pretty predictable ways, doesn't it? There's avoidance, where silence just lets resentment build and build. There's appeasement, where we say yes just to make the discomfort go away. Domination, where power is used to just shut a conversation down. Triangulation, this is a big one, where gossip and side conversations take the place of telling the truth directly. And especially in mission-driven organizations, you see this spiritualized bypass where unity gets forced on people without any real resolution. Every single one of these creates fear, confusion, and deep mistrust.
And all of this leads to two completely different cultural architectures. They feel totally different to work in. On one side, you've got a performance culture. Here, any kind of rupture or mistake is seen as a failure. Your worth is basically a metric. And what does that breed? Fear and hiding. But on the other side, you have a presence culture. This kind of culture gets that repair is actually what builds resilience. It operates from a place that your worth is inherent, not earned. And this is what builds genuine trust and real psychological safety.
And this brings us to a really crucial reframing of what conflict even is. We actually need a whole new blueprint for leadership, one where repair isn't seen as a bug in the system, but as a central, essential feature.
So let this one really sink in. Rupture is normal. It's just an inevitable part of any human system, any team, any organization. The real marker of a mature and resilient culture isn't that there's no rupture, but that there's a consistent practice of repair. That is the work of leadership.
And let's be absolutely clear about this. Repair is not a soft skill. It's a structural competency. Seriously, think about it like the load-bearing walls of a building. It's what gives the entire culture its integrity, its strength, and its ability to actually withstand pressure without crumbling.
Okay, that sounds great, right? But how do we actually build this competency? Well, we need a tool, a blueprint. The Repair Conversation Map is a master tool that helps you navigate these tricky conversations cleanly and, effectively.
The map has 5 clear steps. First, name the issue. Stick to the facts, not accusations. Second, name the impact. How did it actually affect people or the project outcomes? Third, own your part. This is about taking responsibility, not shaming yourself. Fourth, clarify what the standards and needs are moving forward. And finally, number 5, make clear agreements about who is going to do what and by when. This whole structure is designed to preserve dignity for everyone in the room.
Now, having the map is one thing, but knowing what to say in the moment, that's another thing entirely. These clean leadership scripts are like master keys. They give you precise language you can use in all kinds of situations, from starting a repair conversation to making a tough decision. They unlock the door to leading with real presence.
This first one is just so powerful for de-escalating a situation and starting a repair. My intent was X, but I see the impact was Y. I own that. Why does it work so well? Because it brilliantly separates your intention from the actual impact. It validates the other person's experience, and it takes clear, unambiguous ownership. No excuses.
And here's another one. This is a perfect example of what we call humility with backbone. You say, I was leading from pressure, and I let that leak onto you. I apologize. It names your internal state, that pressure, and you take full responsibility for how it affected someone else. It is such a fast and effective way to rebuild psychological safety.
This script is really a personal commitment that you state out loud. I will lead with clarity and dignity, even if this conversation is uncomfortable. It sets the standard for the entire interaction. It signals that you believe care and truth can coexist. It's about honoring everyone's dignity, especially in those difficult moments. Finally, let's look at a script for breaking through that analysis paralysis that we all get stuck in. We can act with integrity right now without having perfect certainty. This is so empowering for a team. It's part of a whole toolkit for taking action, right alongside phrases like, here's the decision and here's exactly why, or let's choose the next true step and adjust as we go. They all reframe action not as some reckless guess, but as a deliberate step taken with integrity.
So, we have the framework, we have the map, and we have the keys. The final step here, it isn't about achieving perfection. Not at all. It's really about opening the door to the quiet, consistent, and sometimes messy work of practice.
Remember, the strongest, most resilient cultures aren't defined by a lack of mistakes. They're defined by the integrity and the speed of their repair. Repair isn't some detour you take when things go wrong. Repair is the work of leadership. It's the whole thing.
So, we're not going to end with some big, grand statement. It's much quieter than that. It's an invitation. You don't need to plan some massive overhaul. Just ask yourself, what is the next true step you can take? What's one small, sovereign action you can choose to begin this practice today?
Thank you so much for joining me.